Hi everyone, welcome back to the Wired Homestead. It's been a while and there's been so many changes on the homestead that I am so excited to show you. One of which is our little arrival. She's now 2 months, can't even believe it. But she is definitely the best addition to our homestead. The next addition we had came in the form of a bunch of little chicks. We had a thunderstorm that just blew through here about half an hour or so ago. I wasn't expecting it, so I ran out here in the rain and put their food into their chicken tractor with them. But because I didn't know how long it was going to last, well, it turns out it didn't last very long. So I'm going to pull it back out now and let the chicks back out. I have the chicks surrounded by a Premier One electric chicken net. This is to keep them inside the net because I can't have them free range. We just have too many predators, 2 of which come in the form of my dogs. So they have to be contained in an area where they're going to be fairly well protected. Here's the chicken tractor I built. This is an 8x8. It's about 3 feet tall. And inside we have all of our lovely chicks. Plus a couple of turkeys. Turkey 1, turkey 2. So a good portion of these chickens are Cornish crosses. They will be going to freezer camp here in a couple of weeks. They're already so big. I can't even imagine what 2 more weeks of constant eating is going to do to these birds. Then we have 10 layers. Well, supposedly 10 layers anyway. Hopefully they're all females. I bought all females. And then there was one that came as just a free chick. It was from Murray McMurray Hatchery. I can link them in the description if you want to check them out. But their free chick is just an unsexed chicken. So there's an extra in there that we don't know whether it's a hen or a rooster. But they said that most likely it's probably going to be a rooster. And I'm not sure exactly which one that is yet. We'll find out. They have 2 food dishes, and I like to put them outside of the coop, kind of space them apart a little bit, just to get, especially those Cornish birds, moving. The breed is specifically for meat. They're not built for longevity or anything like that, so they're quite lazy. And if you don't make them move, well, then this is what you get. Just a bunch of birds that lay around. I like to force them to move a little bit, and I hope it's a little bit healthier for them. They all seem to be doing really well, and they're fattening up like crazy, so it doesn't seem to be harming them any. These little fellas, the turkeys have been such a challenge. I didn't realize how big of an escape artist they are. I originally had them separate. I read that turkeys have different needs. They have different food that has a different protein percentage. So I had them separate, but they insisted that they needed to be with the chickens. Every single place I put them, they managed to escape and run straight for the chickens. So I decided just to give in and throw them in with the chickens. And they've been in there now for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, and they seem to be doing fine, so hopefully they stay fine. they still like to escape that too. They figure out ways. So even this isn't foolproof, but they don't run. They literally will get on the other side of the net and run the perimeter of the net. Like they want to get back in and can't figure out how they got out. They're silly, but also pretty fun. Now for our second, or I guess our third new addition to the farm, which I'm super excited about these guys too, we have goats. This here's Juno and her daughter Luna. They're Nubians. They will be our new dairy goats. We've had them for just a couple of days now, and they're pretty awesome. I've had them in a stall here for the first several days. They were here for about 3 days, strictly in the stall, just so we could get used to each other. Today I took them out to the pasture for a while, which was so much fun watching them just be goats. You can check out a little bit of that footage here. Two happy girls. It's not quite time to do evening chores yet. They will get a scoop of grain. Not because they need it. They're not in milk right now. They're not pregnant. They don't actually need the grain. But it's just, I'm using it as kind of a bonding measure and to make sure that they're trained to the grain. That way, if they get out or if I need to call them while they're in the pasture, all I have to do is shake that scoop of grain and they'll come running, which is what I want. They do really fantastic at it. The home that I got them from definitely started training them with that. So Juno is fantastic, and then her baby, she just wants to follow mom around. So it's not hard to get them to come back, which is fantastic and an excellent quality. And Juno here is like a big puppy dog. All she wants is to be loved on and scratched. And her daughter, who is also super sweet, is a little bit more skittish than mom, but we will get her to turn into a big puppy dog too. She's a yearling, so she was born last year. So she still hasn't fully matured yet, so she is not going to be bred this year, which means she won't be in milk next year like mom will. I'm still probably going to get one more goat. I'm hoping to find one that's in milk right now because I'm still on leave from work and I really want to kind of get in the habit of milking and build up that hand strength that I'm going to need, because I'm going to be hand milking and not machine milking, at least to start. So I really want to do that now while I have the time, because when I go back to work, I may not have the time for it. Well, I will probably still have the time, but it's going to be a bigger challenge to balance between work, home, and the farm. The other thing I want to give kind of an update on is my garden, which honestly has been pretty well neglected. This little one came at the beginning of June, and I had to go into the hospital for a couple weeks prior to her birth. So the garden was largely neglected. I didn't get nearly as much planted as I intended to get planted. And the things that I did get planted kind of, well, ended up like this kale right here. Either bolted or eaten by bugs. Which is okay, it happens. Sometimes you just gotta figure out where your priorities are and realize that, you know, some things have to take a back seat. And this is one of the things that had to take a back seat to this little one. But what are doing well are the winter squashes and sort of watermelons. And the watermelons I wouldn't say are great, but they are doing better than I expected. And over here, we even have a decent sized watermelon, which is pretty exciting. I have never once been successful with even growing a watermelon plant, let alone having that plant fruit. So I'm pretty excited. I have a couple of decent sized ones. That one's the biggest one. So here's fingers crossed to hoping that they will ripen and we'll get watermelon this year. The rest of all this is winter squash. So we have one right there. We have a couple that are forming. This one is really nice. This is a kabocha squash, I believe. And then we have this one, which I think is a sweetmeat. I'm saying I think because I did all of these as starts before I went into the hospital and got them planted just before I went into the hospital. And I didn't take note to everything that I planted and where I planted it. So some of it I'm not entirely sure. It will be a surprise. But some of it I do know. And the one I do know is the luxury pie pumpkin. Which, over here, I have a really good size one that's ripening up. I have one over here, needs to be supported. And I have one right behind it that also needs to be supported. There are a few others mixed in to all of this too. One thing I can honestly say is that I will have winter squash, which is actually not something I have ever been able to say, so that's pretty exciting. And as a support system for these, I did this cattle panel trellis. I've always wanted to have a whole row of trellises that I could just walk through the middle of. So I was super excited to actually make that happen this year. The row isn't fully complete, but it almost is. And I am able to grow most of these squashes up the trellis, which fulfills a gardening dream of mine. So I'm pretty excited about that. The middle row here, I have a bunch of cabbage that pretty much got eaten. I think there's still a few good ones in there that need to be picked. And then I have a row of tomatoes that I didn't get a trellis built for. So these ones I put in tomato cages, which are not my favorite way of supporting tomatoes, but it's what I had. I have more right there, I just haven't gotten them on any of the other plants. I have green beans that are popping up that I planted just a couple weeks ago. And then this is a straight neck squash. I planted that at this pretty much the same time as the beans, so it's been about 3 weeks or so. It's been super dry here. We haven't had a lot of water to really get some of these things growing really well. I mentioned earlier that we had a thunderstorm last night and again one today, and that brought a decent amount of rain, which we needed desperately. So that should help with everything. And I haven't actually been watering this really either. My goal is to get the garden into a form where I don't actually have to water it at all. It's not there yet. So it definitely, well, except for the winter squash here, and apparently the watermelon, it's suffered from not having regular waterings. The biggest problem with it is our water system. So we have gravity fed system from a creek that just runs straight to our house. There's no pumps or anything. So by the time the water gets to this side of the house that the garden is on, the water comes in on the other side. The pressure is not great. And I have to run a 100-foot garden hose to be able to reach this. 75 feet would probably work too, but I only have 50 or 100, so I use the 100. And the water comes out basically like a trickle, which isn't really very effective for watering the garden. So it's been a little tricky. There's also the problem where if I'm running the water out here, then there is zero water in the house. Like nothing. You can't flush a toilet, you can't run a sink, you can't do anything with water in the house if the water is running out here. At least from the spigot that's attached to the house. Now the spigots that are attached to the water line before it gets to the house, they're fine. But they're further away, so I can't reach the garden with them. So it's made watering a little tricky, and I haven't figured that problem out yet. Well, I think that sums up all of the changes that have happened around here. It's been actually really fantastic. A big learning curve in every single aspect of my life, but in the absolute best way possible. With the addition of these animals, I actually kind of feel like this place is actually becoming a homestead, and it is the most amazing feeling in the world. I just absolutely love them. You couldn't pay me enough to move back into a city or even into a town. Being in the country is just priceless for me. It is for you too, turkeys, huh? That's all for now. Thank you for joining me today as I walk you through all the new things that are going on around here. Turkeys. They just do not stay where you put them. Come on, get down. Get down. Get down. I can't reach you. Get down. Go ahead. No, don't even think about trying to jump over the fence. Just get down. That's not exactly what I meant. Shenanigans. I love it. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And if you hit the bell next to the subscribe button, you'll get notified when I upload my next post. So thank you again, and I hope to see you next time.